Part 8. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 71. This incident did not make any news, because it was just a chance encounter between a navy and a pirate. This kind of thing happens all the time on the sea, but this time the protagonists are more eye-catching, including Orgrim and the Roger pirates, but there is nothing worthy of being in the newspapers, especially since the Navy has not caught them yet. In the following days, the Navy did conduct some investigations on Master Tom, but did not find any useful information. Orgrim lived in Kokorow's house and did not show up at all and was not discovered by the Navy. After the Seven Waters capital delivered the warship, Garp, Durag, Jun, and others no longer stayed in the Seven Waters capital. They left here and returned to the Navy headquarters. In the end, this guy Durag didn't leave the Navy at this point in time. I'm afraid he hasn't made up his mind yet, right? After all, as a proud son of the Navy and a promising lieutenant general of the Navy headquarters, he was asked to give up his future career in one fell swoop, run away from home to start a business, and start a business from scratch. It is indeed a bit difficult to force others to do so, so let them think about it again. On the sea area not too far away from the capital of Seven Waters, the members of the Roger pirates were chatting about something at this time. Ha 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 ha, the newspapers in the past 2 days have not reported any news about that bastard Orgrim. It seems that this guy has escaped safely. Roger put away the newspaper in his hand and said with a smile. Orgrim is now a big man, and the world government is eager to catch him and punish him, so once he, the public enemy of mankind, is arrested, yes, it must be written up in the newspaper. There is no news at all in the newspaper, which can be regarded as side proof that the bastard ran away in the capital of Seven Waters and was not caught by the Navy. So, the newcomers nowadays are really getting better and better. Sparky Jabba also said with a smile. Are you very interested in that boy? I seem to have missed something. Riley held a small wine bottle in his hand and asked with a smile. Ah, indeed, you should chat with that guy. He is very interesting. I even invited him to be our partner. Roger said with a smile. Yeah? How did he say? Refused, Riley asked curiously. Well, not only did he refuse, but he even told me very frankly that he would probably become an enemy in the future. Roger said with a smile, without any concern in his tone. Oh? Is this a declaration of war on us? What's the meaning? Rayleigh asked in surprise. Roger shook his head and continued. They are going to join the Golden Lion pirates. After hearing this, Riley laughed and said, ha 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 ha, it seems you are disliked, Roger. Roger said with some shame and annoyance, it's not what you think. That guy was also very moved by my proposal, but he had some connection with that bastard Shiji, and he owed Shiji a favor, so I said that I admire that bastard very much and I will repay any kindness. Then Roger said again, after telling Rayleigh the reason why Orgrim and the others wanted to join the Golden Lion, Rayleigh nodded in understanding. I didn't continue to talk about Orgrim. After all, this was just a sideshow for the Roger pirates. Then, there is nothing to delay next, let's return to the New World. Roger touched his chin, looked at the sea and spoke softly. In this way, the Roger pirate ship quickly left the sea and headed towards the New World. At the same time, in the capital of Seven Waters, Beckman and others had also found themselves again at this time. After the Navy left, Orgrim moved to Master Tom's studio. Beckman and others also came here to see Orgrim as soon as possible. Damn! You are so awesome, you can actually escape from the hands of Durag and Peach Rabbit. Beckman joked while holding a wine glass. Orgrim also held a wine glass in his hand. His injuries had already fully recovered. After listening to Beckman's words, he laughed and spoke. He boasted, what do you mean by running away? Not only did I run away, I also beat them both up. You go on blowing, Beckman shrugged, not believing it at all. Really, especially that Peach Rabbit, he was probably seriously injured. That Durag is really powerful. If I didn't have some tricks, I really couldn't defeat him. Orgrim took another sip of wine and said. Just when Orgrim was bragging and spanking with Beckman and others, Master Tom opened the door and walked in. Ha 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 ha, are you fully recovered? Orgrim. Master Tom laughed and asked. Orgrim showed his stronger arm and said with the same laugh, oh, I feel like I can kill a sea beast with one punch now, gee ha 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 ha, thank you very much this time, Master Tom. You are my big customer, so there is nothing to be polite about. Master Tom waved his hand and said. After a few more chats, they talked about business matters. Orgrim first touched his chin and thought about it, and then without covering up anything, he said directly, Master Tom, I wonder if you are interested in going to sea? I happen to be short of a boatman on my ship, and a renowned shipbuilder like you is just the right partner for me. Master Tom was stunned for a moment when he heard this, then smiled and waved his hand and said, you are just like Roger, you just say whatever you want. Oh? Did that guy Roger invite you too? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and asked. Well, he invited me a few years ago, but I declined, and it's the same this time. I'm sorry, although I can see that you are sincere, but I have no intention of leaving the capital of Seven Waters, Master Tom said with a smile. Before Orgrim could speak, Master Tom continued, of course, I don't mean to look down on you, but I also have my own dreams. In the past few years, I have been studying a new technology called Sea Train. After hearing this, Orgrim asked a few more questions. In fact, Master Tom just had a preliminary idea, and there was no progress in other aspects, and the funds were not enough. So Orgrim didn't find out any interesting news. Since Master Tom was not interested in going to sea with him, Orgrim did not force anything, and the topic soon shifted to this commission. So let's talk about our business. This time, I'm going to ask Master Tom to build a few ships, Orgrim said softly. Subsequently, Beckman, Nightingale, Plank, Hank and others also expressed their opinions. Finally, to summarize, in short, it must be fully functional, large, powerful, and fast. These requirements may sound simple, but in fact, they are very difficult. After listening to Orgrim and others' requests, Master Tom asked, have you prepared any design drawings? Both Orgrim and Beckman were stunned for a moment, and then they both shook their heads in unison. Master Tom was not surprised when he saw this. After all, most pirates did not have these preparations when they came to build a ship. After thinking about it, Master Tom said you require strong firepower, and you also require the size of the ship to be large enough. It is as if you want to build a huge ship. Yes, exactly that. Orgrim nodded and said. But strong firepower naturally means a heavy load. At the same time, the larger the hull, the greater the weight. In this case, if you want to pursue speed and flexibility, in fact, it's hard, Master Tom said in a deep voice. Although Orgrim and others do not understand shipbuilding, they can be considered experts at sea. Of course they have some opinions on this. The larger the hull, the more the flexibility decreases. This is normal. And big ships often cannot outrun those specially constructed small boats, and they are somewhat lacking in terms of speed. Of course, they are not without their advantages, that is, they have strong firepower and full attack power. Generally, they do not need to run, they can just sink the opponent directly and that's it. Got it? Master Tom, you are a first-class shipbuilder. Is there nothing you can do about this? Orgrim thought for a while and asked. Even a first-rate master cannot violate some basic laws, but he can make up for these defects from the side. I happened to have a design not long ago, but due to financial problems, it has never been launched. You may want to consider it, of course. This design has not been tested in practice, you should also be careful. Master Tom said with a smile. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 72. Master Tom quickly took out his design drawing, and then Orgrim and others gathered around the drawing, listening to Master Tom's introduction. As you might expect, the design of this ship is very large, with enough. Having said this, Master Tom paused for a moment, feeling that Orgrim and others might not have a clear idea of what size to talk about. So he thought for a while and continued, you can think of it as being as big as 2 warships. The top warship of the Navy headquarters, Beckman asked softly. That's right, the top warship. Master Tom said with a smile. That's really big enough, Orgrim also murmured with some emotion. The size of the Navy's top warships is not much different from the average Sea King class. In fact, when sailing on the sea, the Navy's top warships meet the Sea King class. They are basically not empty and they can definitely do it. Pass. At the same time, ships like Orgrim's and theirs now look very good. A ship can hold 200 to 300 people, and it can be regarded as a powerful ship. But compared with the top warships of the Navy headquarters, it is far behind, like a baby. Because the Navy headquarters is a top-notch warship, one ship can carry thousands of naval soldiers, and at the same time its firepower is very powerful. Yes, it is very big, and its carrying capacity is several times that of a warship. I can responsibly say that once you build such a ship, Orgrim, you will not need to build other ships, because all your current subordinates it's okay to be on a boat. Master Tom looked at Orgrim and said. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, as if this was the truth. Gangplank's face turned bitter and he said, then my ship is in trouble. But after just a little bit of complaining, Gangplank smiled again and said, maybe when Mr. Hammer gets on the Golden Lion's ship in the future, this ship will be left to me. That's pretty good too. You kid dreams all day long. Orgrim slapped the guy and said. Everyone smiled again, and Master Tom continued to introduce. Besides, of course, the firepower configuration of this ship goes without saying. As long as you have enough artillery, it will be completely. Hundreds of doors can be added. As for the appearance, it can be adjusted according to your opinions. There is nothing to say. What about the boat speed? Is it fast? Very flexible? Beckman asked while touching his chin. Master Tom shook his head, and then said, as I said just now, even I don't have enough skills to fill in these deficiencies. After a long period of adjustment, I have theoretically, this has allowed the ship to have a speed that is not weaker than that of a warship, but in terms of flexibility, it has even greater flaws. Due to its huge size, it is difficult to turn the ship around on the sea. It's 1/3 slower than a warship. 1/3. Such a big gap, Orgrim murmured in surprise. Don't underestimate this speed. In 1/3 of the time, the warship turned around and occupied the upper wind. It could fire dozens of shots at Orgrim, and even the firepower is so powerful that it can be fired hundreds of times without any problem. Wait, Mr. Tom, what do you mean on the sea? Is it possible that this ship can still be under the sea? Beckman asked as if he had caught something important. At the same time, Master Tom also had a proud smile on his face and said, yes, this is the biggest highlight of the design of this ship. To be honest, the size of the ship just now, or the adjustment of the speed, are not really powerful skills. There are at least 7 master craftsmen in the 7 Waters City who can do these things, but why did this ship get replaced by me? Respect. Because it has very unusual characteristics. Deep water dive. Submarine? Orgrim asked in surprise. Master Tom was stunned for a moment, then smacked his lips and said, this is a good name. Actually, in more than 20 years, submarine technology will not be so shocking. For example, Trafalgar Law built a submarine. But the submarine was very small. This ship is simply incomparable. Nowadays, shipbuilding technology has not yet developed to that extent. Many people have the concept of submarines, but not many have actually been built. It is also very rare in the world. It's rare. Master Tom is obviously a person who can keep up with the cutting-edge trends in shipbuilding technology and concepts, so he is also playing with this technology. But it can be seen that he has now mastered the concept and theory. This ship is a design that has not yet been tested in practice. Many people believe that the flexibility of a ship can only be reflected on the sea. In fact, this view is misunderstood. If the flexibility on the sea is not enough, then you can dive down to buy yourself enough time to adjust. To a certain extent, it can also be regarded as making up for the flexibility shortcomings of huge battleships, Master Tom said softly. Orgrim nodded after hearing this. It seemed to make sense. He had no expertise in this area and just listened to the master. Beckman thought more. Indeed, if it is too late on the sea, then diving into the sea to adjust can completely make up for it. After all, once I reach the sea, you can't beat me. It doesn't matter how you adjust. I won't care. The time is 3 or 2 times slower than yours, which is acceptable. There is no need to adjust at all, just run away from the sea and be done. This is the advantage of stealth. Then Master Tom talked about a lot of professional knowledge. Beckman listened with great interest, but Orgrim was one head and too big. Basically, I don't understand what this is saying. In fact, based on his sailing experience in his previous life, there is still merit in this aspect. But the problem is that the shipbuilding technology in this world has long been divorced from many laws of physics. It is completely different from the previous life. Can't be compared. Take Enlil for example, that guy built an ark of proverbs that can fly around in the sky by generating electricity from love. Moonlight Moria, that bastard, just transformed an island into a 3-mast sailboat, and it can still run around. The Sunny was even able to use coke as power and go directly to the sky. How could this be possible in the previous life? Therefore, Orgrim couldn't understand the messy high-end technologies that Master Tom was talking about. Anyway, to roughly describe them, they were just awesome and novel. After a long time, Master Tom said something that Orgrim could understand. In short, this ship can basically meet your needs. At the same time, it can also try to make up for some defects and bring new advantages. You can consider it. Of course, again, this ship is only a conceptual ship, and there has been no actual testing or construction, Master Tom said in a deep voice. Let me ask a question, is it possible to build this ship? If it succeeds, it will not need coating when going to Fishman Island or something like that. Orgrim touched his chin and asked. Master Tom was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand and said no, Fishman Island is under 10,000 meters deep in the sea. With current technology, no ship can survive without coating under such circumstances, to withstand this kind of water pressure. Then this ship, Orgrim asked hesitantly. You can probably dive about 500 to 600 meters. Although it sounds like a small amount, in fact, totally enough, Master Tom said without hesitation. Orgrim nodded and had no objection to this. Indeed, 500 or 600 meters is enough. Basically no one can get the depth there. After thinking about it, Orgrim he looked at Beckman and asked, I saw you nodding from time to time, must you understand? What do you think? Beckman touched his chin and thought for a while, then said, I want to give it a try. This is really interesting, isn't it? Orgrim grinned, nodded, then looked at Master Tom and asked Master Tom, how much funds are expected to be needed? Master Tom touched his chin, made an estimate, and said, about 1.5 billion belly. Orgrim was silent for a moment after hearing this. After thinking for a while, he slapped the table and said, it's done, let's build this ship. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 73. Orgrim still has more than 20 billion in hand, and he can still afford 1.5 billion belly. He also trusted Master Tom's character. In addition, Master Tom had arranged for his friends to help Orgrim and escape the Navy's pursuit. So Orgrim didn't worry at all that this guy would get away with the money. After finalizing the plan, the funds of 1.5 billion belly were quickly in place. It's impossible for Master Tom to build such a big ship by himself. Then I don't know how long it will take to build it. Maybe Orgrim hasn't left the capital of the Seven Waters yet, and Roger will be beheaded in the East China Sea. Fortunately, this is the capital of the Seven Waters and has a very mature shipbuilding industry system. Master Tom is also a figure here. He does not have the equipment to build large ships, but he can rent it. In fact, part of the 1.5 billion belly funds was used to rent equipment and hire a large number of shipwrights. On Hulk Island in the capital of the Seven Waters, on the deck of a dilapidated ship, Orgrim was squatting here smoking. He was holding a schedule that Beckman had just sent to him, and his face was a little bitter. Estimated construction time is half a year? Oh my God, in other words, we have just spent the past 6 months in the capital of Seven Waters. Orgrim said with a grimace. Beckman was also squatting on the other side, playing with a wisp of venom in one hand, holding a cigarette in the other hand, and said with a smile, if you want to, you can also go out for a walk. Orgrim curled his lips and did not comment, but asked, as for warships, can we launch one in 2 weeks? This is only twice the size of a warship. How can it be delayed for such a long time? Why don't you ask why the cost of building a warship is only 200 million belly? Beckman rolled his eyes and said. After a pause, he exhaled a puff of smoke and explained to Orgrim, a country bumpkin, the manufacturing system of warships has been quite perfect. It can even be said that this is already a mature industrial chain has been established, do you understand? It is an assembly line project, so whether it is the cost or the required construction time, after so many years of development, it has been compressed to the extreme. Okay, I understand, it means that ours is a brand new technology, and there is no assembly line operation. It basically relies on on-site polishing, so it takes a long time and costs more money, right? Orgrim nodded and said. Yes, that's what it means. If we build 180 ships and form a mature team and system, it won't be like this, Beckman said with a smile. 180 ships? If I were so rich, why would I be a pirate? Orgrim joked with a smile. The two brothers chatted about these topics again, and then Orgrim said, just half a year, just like Hank, Plank, and Nightingale, they all need to practice. In terms of strength, let them grow up during this time. The same goes for the two of us. Domination is still very important. We should take advantage of the half-year gap to strengthen it. Master Tom is not the only outstanding shipwright in the capital of Seven Waters. During this period, we can also find some partners. Beckman nodded and said. By the looks of it, do you have any good ideas? Orgrim asked. Of course, we should pay special attention to this shipbuilding team. If there are good talents in it, it would be best to recruit them. Our ship is too big, so the number of shipwrights needed cannot be less than 3, right? It's always more reliable to pick something from inside than to find it from outside, Beckman said with a smile. This is true, after all, they are the group of people who built the ship, and they must be more familiar with ships than those found from outside. Orgrim thought for a while and said with great approval. Also, the capital of the Seven Waters has always provided only ships, not weapons. Even if we remove all the cannons from our previous ships, we still won't be able to fill up this new ship. If we want to have sufficient firepower, we still have to think of many ways. We need to get some arms. How do we arrange this? Beckman looked at Orgrim and asked. Orgrim touched his chin and asked, a man who robbed the navy. Beckman smiled, and then suggested even if we rob, we can't do it too frequently. After all, the Navy is not a fool. They don't know where we are or what we are doing. But if we move too frequently, it will be very difficult to be noticed. It's a normal thing. When they seal the Seven Waters City, it won't matter if we can escape. What about the ship being built now? Beckman's suggestion makes sense. Orgrim nodded in approval. Indeed, now is not the time to provoke the Navy. Otherwise, it is very likely that all will be lost. If the Navy cannot catch them, why can't they catch a ship? Don't you have a good ship? What's more, if you provoke the Navy too much, it will really be difficult to enter the New World. After thinking about it, Orgrim said it seems that we still need to contact our young master. He should have a way to do this, but the Pele in our hands is not that sufficient. The old rule is, if you let the brothers go out to rob, it's just a training exercise. Beckman asked after thinking for a while. Wouldn't that attract the Navy's attention? Orgrim hesitated and said. Just don't use the banner of our Warhammer pirates, right? Just talk nonsense. There are so many pirates in this sea. As long as we don't show up too often, the Navy won't find anything. If that doesn't work, we can always rob the pirates, right? Can pirates still go to the Navy to report the crime? Beckman pondered for a moment and said. You are such a genius. Orgrim laughed and patted Beckman on the shoulder. Generally, when pirates rob merchant ships, unless they are particularly vicious guys, they are looking for money and will not kill everyone easily. After all, it's the same as with wool. If you kill all the sheep in one go, how can you still make money in the future? Other colleagues will also hold grudges against you. Therefore, after a merchant ship is robbed, it is very likely that they will complain to the Navy, and the Navy will strengthen its efforts. This is a routine patrol in that sea area. Therefore, if the frequency is too many, it is very likely that Orgrim and others will be exposed, but if they are robbing pirates, there is no such excuse. Kill them all and rob them all. People complain to them. Even if they were left alive, no one would go to the Navy to complain. After all, what's the difference between that and surrendering? After roughly deciding these things, Orgrim took out his money. He picked up his phone, smiled, and dialed. At the same time, in the North Sea, Doflamingo was also having a party. He was not on Mignon Island. In fact, he was not on Mignon Island. After Orgrim and others left Mignon Island, Doflamingo rarely went there. His Don Quixote family has many stations in the North Sea, and he was in one of them at this time. In the past 6 months, Doflamingo can be considered proud of his success. He has basically suppressed the limelight of the Kingdom of Germa, and Orgrim has not competed with him for any interests in the North Sea. Generally speaking, Doflamingo has become Bihai's evil forces have taken over. With Bihai's power, his development in the Dark World is also in full swing. Now he has even become famous as a Dark World middleman. Most of Bihai's businesses are related to the Dark World. You have to go through the Don Quixote family. He, Doflamingo, also has the name of Joker. He was holding a bikini beauty in Doflamingo's arms and doing it with a smile. While lying down, the phone he put aside suddenly rang. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, and after looking over there, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he murmured softly, "What a surprise! Interesting." After waving away the beautiful woman beside him, Doflamingo answered the phone with a smile. Before Orgrim could speak, he laughed heartily and said, "Fur, half a year no contact, right? Mr. Zooey. Gee ha 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 ha, young master, are you okay? How is business? Oh. Listening to your voice over there, are they having some kind of party again? It seems that I am in a good mood, and I think the business is also very good. Is your beautiful female secretary with a tight mouth still there?" Orgrim was like a barrage, Talking a lot. Doflamingo couldn't laugh or cry when he heard this, and finally said, thanks to you, my place is very good. Well, as for the secretary, I have already changed it. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 74. Admiralty Marineford. Jun has returned here. Because she was beaten violently by Orgrim, she was given half a month's recuperation leave and was sent to the sanatorium at the Navy headquarters. As for Durag, this guy didn't have any special injuries, just some minor bone fractures. With this kind of injury, there is no need to be sent to the hospital for recuperation. If the Navy is so expensive, then basically every mission will require hospitalization. How can there be so much funds for them? Even if there were, there wouldn't be that many beds. In the courtyard of the sanatorium, Kyuzan and Jun were staring at each other, both looking a little embarrassed. After a period of recuperation, Kyuzan has recovered a lot now. At least he doesn't look as miserable as before. However, the triangle scarf is still hanging on his arm and the fracture has not healed yet. Looking at Jun again, she actually didn't have any particularly serious injuries. After all, as an animal-type phantom beast-type user, she is still very good in terms of physical fitness. Are you here? Kyuzan finally looked at Jun and spoke first. I am coming, Jun responded helplessly. You shouldn't have come. Kyuzan shook his head and said softly. Stop blabbing, do you think it's me who wants to come here? This kind of injury can be fully recovered if you give me another 3 to 5 days. Isn't it because of the procedure? When Jun heard Kyuzan said some incomprehensible words here, he cursed angrily. That means Jun's devil fruit ability has not been awakened. If her ability had been awakened, Orgrim might not have been able to escape at that time. He fell, and even if he was seriously injured, he probably returned to normal on the way here. Kyuzan's eyelids twitched a little when he heard what Jun said, and he said with some embarrassment, you really need to change your temper. So popular, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to get married in the future? That's right. Although Jun's name in the Navy headquarters is Momo Yosagi, it sounds like he is very gentle and generous. In fact, Jun is indeed very gentle and generous when dealing with people. However, after getting to know each other, he doesn't have to be so pretentious with his relatives and friends. In essence, Jun's temper is indeed the popularity. And being hot also has its benefits. It is precisely because Jun has a hot temper, is eager for justice, and dares to fight, that she can stand out from the elites of the Navy and become an excellent seedling of justice, and she will be even better in the future. Become an admiral candidate at the Navy headquarters. You don't need to worry about this. Those who want to chase me can line up from Marineford to Lockdrew. Jun waved his hand impolitely and said. After a slight pause, Jun looked at Kyuzan with a strange look, and then asked, are you trying to trick me? Want to chase me? Kyuzan waved his hands with toothache after hearing this, and said, I'm sorry, I like gentle women, you'd better leave it alone. I think among the generals in this department, only that guy Jiaji can't recognize your true face. You bastard, how can you talk to your superior? Remember your status clearly. You have been demoted to brigadier general now, but I am still a major general. Pay attention to your attitude, Jun said very unhappily when he heard Kyuzan mention Keiki. Speaking of Keiki from the Navy headquarters, he is also a very good talent. He is excellent in all aspects. He is called the T-Dolphin. Likewise, he is an outstanding seedling who is not weaker than Jun and Kyuzan, and he will also be one of the candidates for general in the future. Speaking of which, the names of outstanding seedlings of this group of people at the same time are relatively consistent. Look at Kyuzan's Kingzi, Sakaski's Akainu, Porisalino's Kizaru, Jun's Peach Rabbit, Cake's T-Dolphin, etc. They are all the same color, plus a code name for the animal. Originally it's nothing, but after a few of them got their name out there, the current young generals of the Navy headquarters are all proud of using this color and animal as their code name. If anyone can get such a name, it means that the headquarters recognizes your qualifications and excellence, and your future is secure. Kyuzin glanced at Jun with some surprise, and then asked, weren't you hospitalized after being beaten by that bastard Orgrim? When Jun heard Kyuzin's description, the fire in his heart started to rise, but he still held back his breath and gritted his teeth and said, it was that bastard who ran away in the capital of Seven Waters. Also, unlike you, I am here to recuperate, not to be hospitalized. Kyuzin twitched the corner of his mouth. Aren't these all the same? You were also killed by Orgrim, why weren't you demoted? Kyuzin said with some dissatisfaction. Jun glared at Kyuzin angrily, thinking that I haven't been killed yet? Can I be more precise with my words? But soon, she laughed again and said, ha 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 ha, this is all about luck. My mission was to escort the warships from the capital of Seven Waters back to Marineford. The mission was completed perfectly. However, there was an unexpected situation and I failed to capture Orgrim. The bastard is just brought to justice. This is something outside the target. Not only is there no fault, but the credit should be given. Do you think everyone is as unlucky as you? Kyuzin felt a little helpless after hearing what Jun said. According to the regulations, this is indeed the case in Jun. He can only say that he is in bad luck. Something can happen to the people who protect Tianlong. After struggling for a while, Kyuzin decided that he was an adult and did not remember the faults of villains. Why should he care about a woman from Jun? So when the topic changed, Kyuzin asked, you are one of the few people in this department who has fought against that guy. How do you feel? Jun was silent for a moment after hearing this. His expression was a little unwilling, but in the end he nodded and said, I used to think that something happened to you because I was too arrogant and careless, but now I realize, that's not the case. This Orgrim is stronger than what you described. At least he has made obvious progress in terms of domineering. Yeah? Kyuzin murmured softly, and then looked at his arm. He has been recovering during this period, and has Orgrim made greater progress? The gap has begun to widen. It seems that I will have to work harder in the future. Jun is a very proud man. Among the 6 new generation masters of the Navy, Durag can be said to be the leader and the leader. Then there are the 2 seniors, Sakaski and Porisalino. The next levels are Kyuzin, Jun, and Cake, which are almost tied. But if we take a closer look, among the 6 masters, only Jun is a girl. You can imagine how outstanding Jun is and how proud he is. But even Jun, who is so proud, has to admit a problem at this time. I was in the Seven Waters capital at that time. If Dalag hadn't been there, I might have. Having said this, Jun glanced at Kyuzin again, then smiled and continued, I'm afraid it will be worse than you. Kyuzin said angrily, what comparison are you making? Do you look down on me? Ha 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 ha, if nothing else, at least I have better luck than you. Jun laughed. Kyuzin glared at Jun unhappily, and then didn't care about it. After all, although the 2 often mocked each other, they actually had a very good relationship. What about Durag? What does that guy think of Orgrim? Kyuzin suddenly asked. Jun was silent for a moment after hearing this, and then said he thinks that the strength and potential of Kazguro's Orgrim may not be inferior to him. Kyuzin's mouth twitched when he heard this. To be honest, I have only played against Orgrim once. I do understand him well and can see many problems. But if I really want Kyuzin to judge how good Orgrim is, Kyuzin still can't say. But he has been in the Navy for many years. Due to Garp's relationship, he is also a good friend with Durag. He knows Durag very well, and his potential may not be much comparable. Kyuzin thinks that he is not inferior to anyone, but in terms of strength, Durag is still recognized as powerful. But Dalag gave Orgrim such an evaluation, which also made Kyuzin pay more attention to this bastard. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that this world is no longer peaceful. Whenever this happens, there will always be some monsters jumping out. You and I are one of them. This is normal, right? How? Got hit? No more confidence. Jun looked at Kuzan's silence and mocked. Kuzan smiled when he heard this and said, "Who do you think I am? I'm Kuzan. Brothers, there are 13,000 more flowers in one day. I will not break my promise and will add another chapter. There is no limit if the number can increase by 10,000 every day, I will add another chapter every day." A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 75. Today's era is on the eve of a turbulent time. Not only the Navy headquarters is seeking development and growth, but the pirate camp is also doing the same. Shiji is the representative figure, and he temporarily dominates the crowd. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the heroes are willing to be suppressed by Shiji all the time. It all depends on fate for Whitebeard. As long as he gets along with him and can fit into the atmosphere of his pirate group, no matter what kind of guy he is, whether he is strong or not, he can become his family and give him a son. And Whitebeard can indeed compete with Shiji, but in terms of ambition, he is not as aggressive as Shiji. Needless to say, the Roger pirates took the route of a small number of elites, and they had already met Orgrim in the capital of Seven Waters. They knew what Orgrim thought. If they wanted to recruit people, they would also recruit others. People. But there are still many big bosses who don't know these secrets, and they are also recruiting people. Under Shiji, Whitebeard, and Roger, Beast Kaido and Big Mom Charlotte Lingling are currently the most prominent characters. Kaido is also very ambitious, and he always likes to recruit strong people to work under him. And Kaido loves devil fruit users very much. Of course, here, he prefers those with animal abilities. But this does not mean that Kaido does not pay attention to other types of devil fruit ability users. In the future, the famous beast pirates will still have masters other than animal type ability users. Some of them were invited or convinced by Kaido himself. For example, DJ Sounds Schoolachman APU, Magician Hawkins, and so on. Of course, there are also Eustace Kid and Monkey D. Luffy, it's just that these two have tough bones and failed to win over each other. It can also be seen from here that although Kaido of the Beast Pirates has his own preferences, he is still eclectic in terms of talents. To be honest, no one wants to be a second-rate player regardless of whether they are ambitious or not, let alone an ambitious and powerful boss like Kaido. Now that Shiji is in the limelight, no one would have thought that he suddenly overturned in the middle of the road and was unable to recover. Therefore, none of these capable bosses would place their hopes on such a vague possibility. All they want to do is seize the time to accumulate strength and reach the top as soon as possible to become a new generation of bosses. Therefore, in terms of attracting talents, competition among major pirate groups, especially the second-rate pirate groups with strength, potential, and ambition, is very fierce. Whenever a new seedling appears on the sea, these people take it very seriously. At this time, on Kaido's ship in the New World, Kaido was looking at a report sent by his subordinates. Most of the people introduced in this report are new and powerful guys who have emerged on the sea in recent times. Sand Crocodile, Moonlight Moria, Joricole Mihawk, Hosgarot Orgrim. Kaido flipped through the report page by page, his brows frowning and relaxing from time to time. Speaking of which, Kaido's image outside has always been very clear. Most people think that Kaido is a reckless man, a very stubborn man. He challenged people like Whitebeard and Golden Lion on his own more than once. He even challenged the Navy chief many times and was caught several times. Although he loses every time, no one dares to look down on him, because he loses, but no one can do anything to him. Now he is not sitting here as a boss, even now most people think he is only second-rate. Pirate boss. But this second-rate is not the second-rate in a few decades. The second-rate now depends on who you compare with, whether you compare with Whitebeard, Shiji, or Roger. 99% of the world is second-rate, okay. And Kaido thinks that sooner or later, he will be able to trample on those bastards like Shiji, Whitebeard, and Roger. Looking at it, Kaido suddenly asked Yin next to him, do you have any ideas? Kaido has not caused any 3 disasters yet. To be honest, he is the only one in the entire Beast Pirates. He is the leader, and everyone else is his younger brother, even this Jin. If it weren't for the power of some high-quality elite barbarian tyrants in hand, Kaido's Beast Pirates would not even be able to compare with Big Mom. The big signboard in the future, 3 disasters. Now there is only Yin, and Quinn doesn't even know where he is. Jack has been taken over by Kaido, but he is still a little kid who hasn't grown up. It's not a matter of being young anymore. It's too small. That guy accidentally ate a devil fruit and luckily became an ancient animal type Esper, so Kaido took a fancy to him and took him by his side to train him from an early age. But if you think about it carefully, Kaido might not be very good at teaching others, right? After all, although Jack will cause 3 disasters in the future, in terms of strength, it's really embarrassing. I didn't learn Kaido's true skills at all. Instead, I learned Kaido's reckless temperament to the fullest. This is also the reason why the Beast's pirates are now only considered second-rate players, because apart from Kaido, there is no one in the Beast's pirates who can really fight. Therefore, Kaido is more eager than other bosses to find some high-quality talents to form his own team. This is also one of the development directions of the Beast's pirates and the main goal in the near future. Although the outside world has always thought that Kaido is a reckless player who doesn't know his last name after drinking a little bit, and fights this and that, but they have not understood that this is actually a strategic method of Kaido. After all, he doesn't have any cards under his banner and can't let them go, so he, the boss, can only do it himself. But if he wants to do it seriously and fight those guys, Kaido's Beast's pirates can't beat them. It's also easy to lose face. So let's go to a one-on-one challenge. Don't worry about winning less and losing more, but Kaido has made his name step by step in this way, otherwise he might not even be considered second-rate now. So Kaido is actually a very smart guy. You can't underestimate this bastard, otherwise you will suffer a loss. After listening to his boss's inquiry, Yin thought for a while and said, "Are they all excellent?" Kaido shook his head and said, "On the sea, there are many excellent people who want to find them, and these guys who have emerged have one distinctive feature, that is, they are young." As he spoke, Kaido set his sights on the information of Joricole Mihawk and Kazgro Orgrim, and emphasized especially these 2 guys, "You are simply too young." After hearing this guy Yin looked at the information in his hand again. Sure enough, one of these 2 guys had just grown up, almost 17 years old, and the other was just 17 years old. But the achievements of these 2 people are very impressive. Kazguro's Orgrim went to sea for half a year and did not even reach the New World. In the first battle, the naval hero Garp suffered a small loss. The Navy headquarters directly lost a super powerful devil fruit. In his second appearance, he defeated Kuzan, the new generation card of the Navy headquarters, head-on. Now he has become a public enemy of mankind, with a bounty of up to 320 million Baileys. It can be said that Yin, who has been with Kaido for a while, feels that he is doing well. But that's it. His bounty is not as high as Orgrim's now, and his strength may not even be as strong as Kuzan's. There may be a big gap between him and Orgrim. Comparing people to each other is so annoying. The other one, Joricole Mihawk, was also too young and had not been at sea for a long time. He was only about 3 months earlier than Orgrim. Looking at the bounty, it can be said that there is nothing outstanding. It is more than 70 million and less than 100 million belly. From this point of view, it can be said that this guy named Mihawk is very bad when it comes to being a pirate. Competence, in theory, is not necessary to be taken seriously. But when it comes to swordsmanship, this guy is as eye-catching as Orgrim, or even more eye-catching. After going to sea for more than half a year, he challenged 73 kendo gyms along the way. In terms of swordsmanship, he defeated 2 vice-admiral swordsmen from the Navy headquarters. There were also some famous swordsmen in those kendo gyms. But even so, this Jorikol Mihawk has been practicing swordsmanship since he went to sea, never failed. So in Yin's opinion, this guy is also a monster. No less a monster than that monster of Hosgarot Orgrim. Today's flowers are enough to add more, I will continue to add more. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 76. In comparison, although Sand Crocodile and Moonlight Moria are also very good, they are still a bit different from these two guys in terms of age. Comparing them, they feel not so special. Thinking of this, Yin looked at Crocodile and Moria's information again, and still thought that was all, right? This crocodile is okay, Moria, it just stands out a little more than the rest of the people in the sea. But soon, Yin secretly slapped himself. You are so swollen. You don't even know your last name when you are with Boss Kaido? Obviously these people are all excellent, right? You are not even as powerful as them, so why do you dare to look down on others? Then Yin looked at the information about Orgrim and Mihawk, and murmured secretly, it's these two monsters that have affected me. No, I have to work hard, otherwise I won't be able to keep up with Boss Kaido in the future. If you step forward, won't you be kicked? He is very young, too young, Jin said softly. Kaido nodded, supported his chin with one hand, and knocked on the table in front of him with the other hand, seeming to be thinking about something. After a long time, Kaido said, these guys, all pay close attention and find a way to test whether they can work under me, especially Kazgarot Orgrim and Jorikor Mihawk. I understand, Boss Kaido, I will arrange it, Yin nodded and said. Kaido glanced at Yin again after hearing this, and warned, there are more and more heroes on the sea, so don't relax, you know. I know, Boss Kaido, Yin nodded very sensibly. After a slight hesitation, Yin asked again, Boss Kaido, what if they don't want to? Kaido was silent for a moment after hearing this, and looked at Yin meaningfully, and then said, then we'll see if we have the fate to meet each other on the sea in the future. Kaido was very smart, and he understood what Yin meant. If these people joined in, there would be nothing to say, but if they didn't join in, they might become his enemies in the future. So when dealing with enemies, why not strike first and eradicate them as soon as possible before they grow up? And Kaido felt that there might be something else to it. Could Yin be thinking that if these people joined, it would affect his status? After all, Kaido's beast pirates have a rule that is very consistent with pirates, that is, the strong advance and the weak retreat. Those who are strong will naturally have high power and status, while those who are weak will get lost. There is no qualification or disqualification, and there is no time or long-term problem. It all depends on strength. Therefore, Kaido's answer to him was very simple. There was no need to eradicate them all in advance. Even if he rejected him, he would still let them develop. Because Kaido is very confident in his own strength. They are powerful newcomers and heroes. Are they inferior to him? No, I am stronger than them. And will always be strong. This is Kaido's confidence. Even if they become enemies in the future, Kaido will have the confidence to defeat them whenever they meet. As long as he defeats them, there will be plenty of time and opportunity to conquer them, right? In the same way, this can also put some pressure on Yin in some obscure aspects and let him understand that even if we have no one under our command now, you will still encounter such powerful enemies in the future, and these people may even become me. Kaido's subordinates. If you don't want to lose, or don't want to be squeezed out, don't think about these messy things, and the right way is to strengthen your strength honestly. Yin didn't know what Boss Kaido was thinking, but he knew very well that he couldn't mess around. So he quickly nodded and said, I understand, Boss Kaido. Well, go do your own thing. Kaido nodded and ordered softly. Then Yin left here, and Kaido was the only one left in the room. After a long time, Kaido picked up the information on the table. He didn't look at it. He looked at Mihawk and Orgrim instead of Crocodile and Moria. He first looked at Mihawk's information again, and seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, he felt a little regretful. He shook his head and put down the information in his hand. Because he believed that Mihawk was not a pure pirate. Although there were not many records in the information, some problems could be seen. First of all, Mihawk was although this guy is defined as a pirate by the world government and the navy, in fact, he doesn't even have his own pirate flag, nor does he have any pirate group. He only goes to sea on a small sampan. Walking alone on the sea. The reason why he was recognized as a pirate by the world government is probably because he caused a lot of damage in several sword battles, and also because he forcibly challenged the Vice Admiral swordsman of the Navy headquarters. Such a person, this guy, rather than saying that he is a pirate, it is better to say that he is a wandering guy who only has the sword in his eyes and can do anything for the sword. Therefore, Kaido feels that it does not make much sense to recruit this guy in a pirate way. Maybe if I have a very powerful swordsman in my hand, I can barely attract this guy's attention and make him a little interested, right? But do I have a beast pirates? Although Yin also uses a sword, he is not a swordsman in the true sense. Obviously, no, he is a mace player, so he is more like a swordsman. So Kaido thinks it's unlikely that Mihawk will be recruited. Although it's a pity, that's it. In fact, this is indeed the case. When Mihawk came into contact with Kaido's people and understood the purpose of their visit, he asked a question. There's something powerful on your ship, a swordsman. No. Sorry, can't go, farewell. Compared with Mihawk, Kaido is very interested in Kajgro Orgrim. It can be said that he is full of interest. Why does Kaido prefer animal-type devil fruit ability users? On the one hand, because he himself is this kind of person. On the other hand, it is because of his fighting style. Kaido feels that a real man should fight head-on. Those weird ability users are all flashy and not satisfying at all. On the contrary, they are animal-type ability users, all of whom are masters of physical skills. It is fun to fight. And according to the data, Orgrim's fighting style is very suitable for him. He is fierce and cruel, and he likes to beat others to death. He has a head that is somewhat cunning. This is what a pirate should be like. As for the fact that there is no detailed introduction to Orgrim's battle scenes, how did Kaido see that this guy's fighting skills are very fierce? Just kidding, they use sledgehammers. As a lover of heavy weapons, Kaido feels that he has a lot of say in this aspect. Have you ever seen a guy who uses a sledgehammer to fight, who is not tough? Again, coupled with the ability to impact the fruit, it sounds very ferocious. The more he looks at it, the more interested Kaido becomes in this guy. This guy is simply his good partner, a fellow man. No, we have to find a way to get in touch with this Orgrim, pull him to my boat, or give him a vice captain position? Kaido said to himself. As for whether this Orgrim is worthy of being his captain, Kaido thinks he is qualified. The reward of 320 million and the result of defeating Kyuzen head-on all prove it. Knowing Orgrim's strength and potential, especially since he is still so young and in the period of explosive strength, with a little training for 3 to 5 years, he can fully stand on his own and become the iconic boss of their beasts pirates. One of them. Then I won't have to suffer so much. When I go out to fight in the future, I can also take Orgrim with me. Perfect. Well, the sea is so big, How can I get in touch with this Orgrim as soon as possible? Don't let the rest of the guys beat you to it. After Kaido thought about it, he cursed with some displeasure. A wonderful person is right in front of you and you can't touch it? Isn't that annoying? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 77. Time passed quickly, and almost 3 months passed in a blink of an eye. Orgrim didn't know that Kaido had fallen in love with him, and that he couldn't help himself. That's right, although Kaido has not touched Orgrim so far, not even a hair, and the entire Warhammer pirates seem to have disappeared, with no news at all on the sea. But Kaido still couldn't help but fall in love with Orgrim. There was even a rumor in the Beast Pirates that before going to bed every night, Kaido's boss would look at Kazguro's Orgrim twice. The reward order. At first, it was just a simple understanding. Kaido felt that Orgrim was very suitable for him. Then, he frantically collected information about Orgrim. It can even be said that Kaido now has information about Orgrim. The information is so damn detailed than that of the Navy headquarters. The more he looked at these things, the more Kaido liked Orgrim. He was bold and careful, capable of recklessness and cunning. He was still in the capital of the Seven Waters, and escaped from the hands of Garp, Drago, and Jun again. He might even have severely damaged the Momo Yosagi Jun and suppressed him. That Durag. Oh, what a talent! I wish I could meet each other, have fun talking over wine, and become sworn brothers with different surnames. Kaido couldn't sleep well at night because of this. When he got up in the morning, he had to call someone to ask, is there any new news about Orgrim? Did it cause any big incident? Of course Orgrim didn't know that Kaido was obsessed with him to such an extent that he could even be said to be possessed. If he found out, would he feel scared and his anus tighten, afraid that there was something wrong with Kaido's bastard's orientation? At this time, Orgrim was still building ships in the capital of Seven Waters, and his Warhammer pirates didn't cause any trouble. Every time they went out to sea to rob, accumulate wealth, etc., they used the rest of the pirates. In the name of. Beckman would occasionally follow him, but most of the time he wouldn't make a move, and would be silenced as soon as he did. He was extremely ruthless. Therefore, although the Warhammer pirates' gains during this period of time are good, in fact, they have disappeared on the sea. But even if there is no news about him or Grim in the sea, it is still very exciting. This guy Crocodile has promised to challenge the Whitebeard pirates and challenge Whitebeard for the title of world's strongest man. But there was no action for the time being. His bold words spread to Whitebeard, and Newgate just smiled indifferently. Mihawk is a very fast guy who has kicked the gym 93 times. It can basically be said that he will knock out a kendo gym in 3 to 5 days. He will not let go of the big or small. If you see it, go kick it. Moreover, he has been playing all the way without a single defeat, and he also publicly declared in the news of the world that he will challenge all the powerful swordsmen in the world in the next few years, and he also welcomes swordsmen from all walks of life to come and give advice. This tone can be said to be extremely arrogant. He said clearly to the world's swordsmen, I, Joricole Mihawk, just want to slap you in the face and step on you to reach the top. Mihawk even said that he would challenge Shiji. After all, Shiji was also a powerful swordsman. It's just that Shiji didn't bother to respond to this guy. Although Mihawk and Crocodile's slogans are very arrogant, one wants to challenge the world's swordsman, and the other wants to challenge the strongest man, many people think that the two of them are too arrogant, unpleasant, and do not know how to keep a low profile. But there are also many people who particularly like the two of them and think that they are very capable. Crocodile's pirate group also expanded a lot as a result. And Mihawk is also praised by his fans as one of the best in the world. After all, Mihawk is not only powerful in swordsmanship, but he is also very handsome and has an excellent temperament. He looks like a proud and indifferent noble king. Is this possible without gaining fans? Therefore, my hawk also has a lot of potential support on the sea. Many people say that if he can maintain this momentum in the next few years, he will definitely become a famous figure on the sea, and even become the #1 in the world. Great swordsman. The Warhammer Pirates shipbuilding progress is on track, and there have been no surprises. The huge ship structure was filled day by day, and gradually became more substantial. Orgrim has never been to the sea. Instead, he is pondering his own strength and preparing to accumulate more knowledge so that he can shock the sea the next time he takes action. Now Orgrim has a deeper understanding of armed domineering. The Haki training manual that Doflamingo originally gave to Orgrim did not describe it to a profound level. For example, the second stage of armed Haki, being able to exert power through the air, was not mentioned at all. As for the domineering power of knowledge, it was the same. He didn't reveal anything about foreseeing the future at all. I don't know if this is Doflamingo hiding his clumsiness, or if it's because he doesn't have any understanding in this area at this stage. Orgrim thinks that Doflamingo is at this level at this stage, and the Don Quixote family is only at this level, and has not yet touched the later levels. At this stage of armed domineering, Orgrim has fully understood the concept. The rest is a process of accumulation, which depends on breakthroughs in actual combat and daily tempering. If you don't rush, you will work hard and get it right. In place. Therefore, in recent times, Orgrim has been mainly studying his devil fruit abilities and mastering the Haki of wisdom and color. Orgrim felt that his impact fruit was very strong, but the development of it was really not very good. It was completely reckless. The power was increased, but the technology was almost non-existent. After all, what Orgrim was pursuing before was a destructive power that could kill enemies with one hammer blow. It's better not to use the second hammer, just smash him directly. But after these few battles, Orgrim also discovered that he had a big deficiency in the development of skills. Take Kuzan as an example. It is difficult for you to make a final decision against a master of this level. After all, if you want to hit him with one hammer, you have to be able to hit him. This requires very high skills, and Orgrim is studying and thinking about this aspect. Similarly, this also requires the support of the hegemonic power of knowledge and knowledge. The powerful domineering power of knowledge and knowledge can enable one to always grasp the opponent's movements and initiative in battle. If Orgrim could accurately predict the enemy's movements, then the threat of his sledgehammer would increase dramatically. There will also be a qualitative breakthrough in combat effectiveness. It's just that whether it's the development of abilities or the mastery of sight, knowledge, and color, they are all relatively complicated and difficult things. At least Orgrim thinks it should be more difficult than armed Haki. Of course, it may also be because he is more talented in armed Haki and can master it quickly. This can be compared with Beckman, and this is indeed the case. The weapon is domineering. As soon as it feels in the hand, just hammer it. The more you hammer it, the stronger it becomes. However, the development of seeing, hearing, color, and fruit abilities is more dependent on the brain and psychological state. There is still a big gap between Orgrim and Beckman in this aspect. There is a cathedral in the urban area of the Seven Waters city. In recent times, Orgrim has often been in this church. It's not that he's religious, rather, he felt that in this environment, he could calm down and study the development of his own Haki and fruit abilities. So this guy goes to church every day and sits there all day long, closing his eyes and experiencing his own feelings, and muttering something from time to time. It made the archbishop of that church feel extremely happy every time he saw Orgrim. He came to the church to pray every day and sat there for the whole day. Who is this? This is a religious believer. Recently, the archbishop has been thinking about whether he should pay attention to Orgrim and ask this lost lamb if there is any place where he needs spiritual guidance or something. It's also because Orgrim has been so low-key recently that the archbishop, who is dedicated to contributing to the development of the church and doesn't know much about the sea, didn't recognize him. What if the archbishop knew that this guy who comes to the church every day is actually a big pirate known as the enemy of mankind, and every time he comes, he is not praying, but thinking about how to use a sledgehammer faster? What should he think about blowing someone's head off? Will he be so angry that he vomits blood? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 78. On this day, Orgrim came to the church early as usual and did not chat with the believers around him. I found a corner to sit down, and then started to think about the problem of how to quickly blow the enemy's head with a sledgehammer. Speaking of which, during the time he came to the church, Orgrim also gained a deeper understanding of the world. He used to be a country bumpkin from Baha'i. Even if he had knowledge of this world, it was only superficial knowledge, especially this world that was still 20 years away from the beginning of the plot. During his time at sea, it can be said that he has been deepening his understanding of the world. Every time he goes to a place, he will have new insights, and it will also help him further integrate into the world. The more he integrates into this world, the more Orgrim can feel fulfilled. This is a very mysterious experience that cannot be explained or explained, but maybe at a certain time, it can be given to him. He brings unexpected benefits, such as breakthroughs in strength and so on. It's a bit similar to the kind of spiritual practice and enlightenment. In the church, he learned about the religious issues of this world. He had no idea about this before, but now, he finds that religions in this world are quite developed. Buddhism, Catholicism, Taoism, etc. are all found in this world. After thinking about it carefully, it seems that this is indeed the case. I should have ignored it and not noticed it before. After all, Big Mom Charlotte Lingling can be said to be a person who has a deep relationship with the church. There are rumors that she is a devout believer in the church. As for the truth or falsehood, it is not certain. As for the weird monk Urki from Sky Island, this guy is a Buddhist. I heard that Buddhism is relatively prosperous in Wano country, but I don't know exactly how. The Kingdom of Flowers in the West Sea is the birthplace of Taoism. These sects all have their own influence in the world, and the most influential among them is Catholicism, not because of their good teachings or anything, but because they have deep cooperation with the world government. As for the specific cooperation, Orgrim is not sure. It is a matter for the upper level. As a pirate, he does not know much, but he knows a little bit. For example, most of the orphans adopted by the church will be given priority for world government to cultivate and use. Maybe there are many believers in the CP organization. On a darker note, people like Charlotte Lingling are considered to be the trafficked population. There are many dirty guys in the church who specialize in this kind of business, and these guys also have very good vision. They specifically select seedlings with excellent potential and sell them to the world government at a high price. If Charlotte Lingling hadn't caused some accidents on her own, she would have eaten the nun. Where is the big pirate and Big Mom now? Maybe she is the admiral of the navy, or maybe it's the strongest shield of the celestial dragons or something. Generally speaking, Orgrim's impression of the church is not very good. On the one hand, it is because there are many dirty things in the church, and on the other hand, it is because there are many dirty things in the church. Naturally, it is because of the relationship between the church and the world government. As a pirate, it is strange that Orgrim has a good impression of the church. Just when Orgrim was thinking about issues related to the development of haki and fruit abilities, another figure walked in outside the church door. This guy had a cigarette in his mouth and a gold pendant hanging from his left ear. It was Beckman. After scanning around the church, he saw Orgrim's figure, smiled, and walked over here. Soon, he sat next to Orgrim and joked, "I couldn't find you at the dock, so I knew you must have come here again." "What? Are you really planning to convert to God?" Grim smiled when he heard the words, and said with a curse, "Convert to this stupid God? I kill people and set fires. I do all kinds of evil. Even if I want to convert, the boss of God will have to lose his face and ask for me. Ha 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 ha. Yes, I heard that there is a satanic cult that believes in demons from hell. You might consider it, Beckman said with a smile. Satanism does exist. Many years later, under the arrangement of Bartholomew Bear, Brooke almost became the representative of their sect walking on earth. It's just that this sect is obviously a cult. It likes to do messy things and often perform blood sacrifices. I heard that many years ago, an entire island was massacred because of this, and it has been severely suppressed by the world government. Thinking about it this way, it seems that he really matches up with Orgrim. If there is a chance in the future, it is not impossible to serve as a Satanist bishop. Orgrim did not answer the topic, but instead asked with a smile, "Why are you here? Let's see if you've made any progress. After all, I'm better than you in the development of sight, color, and fruit abilities. If you ask me, I can give you some advice. By the way, I'll tell you, Doflamingo's arrangement, the munitions should arrive probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow," Beckman said jokingly. Finally coming, Orgrim nodded. He didn't have anything to say about this. It was just a simple business. He contacted Doflamingo and asked him how much money he needed. Doflamingo would pay a little. Give me a discount, give a friendly price, and then arrange for someone to deliver the goods from Bihai or something. As for how Doflamingo's goods came from, well, his Don Quixote family has a very good relationship with the Navy in Bihai. I heard that he is also a guest of the Admiral of the Navy in Bihai. It is not easy to smuggle arms. After all, we are not asking him to arm a large fleet and come out. After dismissing this topic, Orgrim said happily, "By the way, I do have an idea. In terms of ability development, do you think I can do something conceptual with this devil fruit?" Conceptual? What's the meaning? Beckman looked at Orgrim in confusion and asked. It doesn't just act on the body. For example, it can directly attack the soul or other things. The soul impact, frost blast, fire blast, etc. Orgrim said enthusiastically. Beckman was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Isn't your thinking a little too fast? I suggest you don't be too stubborn about this frost and flame thing. The feasibility doesn't sound very high. Of course, if you have a cooperative partner in the future, it would be very interesting to create a combination of moves. As for the soul impact, can you get some earthly stuff?" Having said this, Beckman looked at the church and then said, "I said you come here every day, so why are you doing these mysterious things? You are wrong about this. The God in this church may be fooling people, but people do have souls. I'm going to do some research on this to see if I can develop something, but even if I have an idea now, I don't have a direction." Orgrim smacked his lips and said, "You seem to be beyond my ability." "I'm afraid I can't help you," Beckman said helplessly. "I know you are useless," Orgrim also said very sarcastically. Orgrim is not sure whether he had a soul in his previous life, but judging from his own time travel, it is not completely impossible. But in this world, Orgrim can be sure, he said, that there is such a thing as a soul in this world. Charlotte Lingling is a master in this aspect. And Brooke, that skeleton, has just brushed aside the system. Soul shock? If you are really planning to come up with something new in this area, I think it may have to be paired with the legendary Overlord color. Of course, this is just an idea I suggested. If you have a better idea, just pretend I didn't say it. Beckman finally thought about it and gave Orgrim a suggestion. Hearing this, Orgrim was silent for a while, and then said, "What you said seems to make sense. I'll think about it." As for the Overlord colored domineering thing, Orgrim doesn't have it yet, but he feels that he should have it. There is no basis for it, just intuition. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 79. After that, Beckman gave Orgrim some advice, telling him not to always want to play with those things from the underworld, and not to take too big steps, which would cause trouble. The development of the fruit can be adjusted in subtle ways. Beckman feels that Orgrim should now have the ability to fly. After all, the impact fruit does have potential to be developed in this area. The shock wave is placed with both feet in one direction. When flying in the air, you can also use the shock wave to adjust the angle and speed. In fact, Orgrim has indeed worked hard in this area. I also very much agree with Beckman's ideas. After chatting for a while, Orgrim asked again, by the way, have Plank and Hank made any progress? Beckman was silent for a moment, then shook his head and said there is not much progress. Let's talk about it privately so as not to dampen the enthusiasm of those two guys. In fact, their talents and potential are indeed not very good, and it will be difficult for them to reach the second-rate level in the future. Of course, if they have good devil fruit abilities, they can still look forward to it. Orgrim nodded when he heard this. Although this is a bit regretful, it is indeed a fact. Don't talk about hard work. It's not that hard work has no effect. It can only be said that in the sea, talent are more important. There are many people working hard, but how many can really stand out in the sea? Plank's kid is a little better. At least he has a bright mind and can be trained into a lookout. He also has certain talents in management. If you can't find any powerful fruits, consider developing in the back office. The size is also a problem. As a cotter, it would be good to let him do intelligence work in the future. Beckman said after thinking for a while. After a slight pause, he said with some regret, Hank is a bit difficult. He is a good hand at cutting people, but he can't keep up with his strength. Neither of them mentioned Nightingale. After all, that guy was just a doctor, so there was no need to expect too much because of his abilities. When others came in, it would be good if he had the ability to protect himself and run away. Orgrim sighed, and then said, after all, he is the old brother who came out with us. If it doesn't work, I will let Hank be a hammer-bearing general for me in the future. Anyway, when I have free time, it's a bit inconvenient to carry a hammer around all day long. Speaking of which, Guan Yu has a sword-carrying general, Zhou Kang. If Hank really can't develop in the future, Orgrim will let him carry it for him. Forget it, this hammer-bearing general is considered a close subordinate to him anyway, so it's not a mistreatment, right? Well, give it some more time to look at it. Beckman nodded in response. Alas, I used to think that when we go out to sea, the sky is high and birds can fly, and the sea is as wide as fish can jump. But now it seems that this is really not the case. If you don't have any powerful guys under you, you have to take charge of everything yourself. Do you still feel like a boss? Orgrim smiled and shook his head. Everything is difficult at the beginning. We haven't been out at sea for long, but we really need to put some effort into recruiting experts. Beckman thought for a while and said. Have you found any valuable talents during your recent overseas trips? Orgrim asked. They are all trash fish, Beckman said very straightforwardly. In fact, there are many pirates and evil gangs on the sea, but 99% of them are just trash fish. Orgrim smiled bitterly and didn't dwell on anything. Beckman asked, where is the capital of Seven Waters? You have been on the island for so long and haven't met any talents. There are a few shipwrights. In terms of strength, Orgrim paused for a moment before saying this, and then gestured to Beckman with his eyes. When Beckman saw this, he also followed Orgrim's eyes and looked over. In the front row of the church, a blond and blue-eyed, very handsome young man was sitting there praying. The man was wearing standard knight armor and holding a cross in his hand. He was obviously a devout believer. Looks interesting? Is it possible to dig it out? Beckman asked. Impossible, Orgrim shook his head and said. Then before Beckman could speak, Orgrim introduced, during this period, I got some information about that guy. He is the guardian knight of the church. It can be said that he is a complete devout believer. He believes in justice, and kindness. He upholds the spirit of holding the strong and supporting the weak, punishing evil and promoting good. Do you expect him to join us? It doesn't exist, but it is possible to become a navy or something in the future. Of course, in terms of strength, he should be pretty good. I heard he is a famous swordsman. A famous swordsman, Beckman nodded after hearing the words, then reached out and touched his chin. It seemed that something flashed through his mind, but he couldn't grasp it. What's wrong? Orgrim asked a little strangely. I don't know. After you mentioned Jianhao, I felt like I had something to say, but the words just kept coming to my lips. Tisk, Beckman smacked his lips and said. Forget it if you can't remember it, maybe it will happen suddenly at some point. Before Orgrim finished speaking, he was stunned for a moment. When Beckman saw this, he followed Orgrim's gaze. He was stunned for a moment, and then quickly said, by the way, I just want to tell you this. I saw that guy at the port, it's very popular. How come this guy appears in the capital of Seven Waters? 2 months ago, didn't you say you wanted to challenge the swordsman in the New World? Being beaten out? Orgrim quickly asked. I haven't heard anything about this, it shouldn't have been beaten out, Beckman said softly. Yes, the person standing at the door of the church at this time is none other than Jorikar Mihawk, who competed all the way in the kendo to challenge the world's swordsman. Orgrim recognized it at a glance. He came to see, after all, this guy is too eye-catching. With his handsome appearance and cold temperament, although he looks very young, no one can underestimate him, because he has an aura that only a strong person can have. It's so powerful. Just standing there, it's like a famous sword, attracting attention. Mihawk is wearing a black noble hat at this time, and behind his back is the sword that will be ranked as the #1 sword in the world in the future. Black Knife Knight. He had falcon-like eyes, his gaze was very cold, and there was a cross hanging on his chest. It was only then that Orgrim realized. Maybe this guy Mihawk is a believer. Mihawk stood still in front of the gate for a while, scanning the church with his eyes. After seeing Orgrim and Beckman, his falcon-like eyes shrank slightly, and his cold expression became slightly hung. He was a little surprised. Obviously, he recognized Orgrim and Beckman, so he was a little surprised. What was even more surprising was that these two big pirates were actually in the church. But then he thought about it, wasn't he too? Are you here? Perhaps out of respect for the strong, Mihawk nodded slightly to Orgrim and Beckman, and Orgrim responded in kind. Then Mihawk did not continue. Paying attention to these two guys, my eyes finally landed on the front row of the church, which was the protective knight that Orgrim and Beckman were discussing just now. Arthur Lancelot, Mihawk called softly. The protective knight who was praying did not respond directly after hearing his name. Instead, he recited the entire prayer silently before turning around. When he saw Mihawk, his expression was a little surprised, because he had no interaction with Mihawk at all. Mihawk walked slowly toward the front row at his own pace. As he walked, he asked softly, Arthur Lancelot, you are the best genius of this generation in the church's guardian knights, enjoys the reputation of the sword of God, and you are proficient in the church's traditional swordsmanship of knights and saints, right? Lancelot stood up first and responded to Mihawk with a knightly salute very politely, then he said, I am Arthur Lancelot, yes, a member of the Order of the Guardian Knights. He did not admit the other names, but he did not deny anything, and seemed to always uphold the humility of a knight. Code. Please advise. Mihawk directly challenged him without saying a word. Orgrim and Beckman both laughed when they heard this. It seemed that a battle between swordsmen was about to begin. Do you think it's possible for us to trick Mihawk onto the ship? Orgrim asked with a smile. Beckman's eyes lit up, he touched his chin and said, that's a good idea. Today's fifth update is presented. I see the number of flowers. I will add more tomorrow. Thank you all brothers for your support. As I said again, if you dare to give, I will give it to you. Add. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 80. After Lancelot, the guardian knight, heard Mihawk's words, he was stunned for a moment, wondering what happened to this man. Then he shook his head and said, I have dedicated my life to the church. As a protective knight, the power I have is not used to fight for the strong, but to help the weak and control the weak. I am fair and protect the church, so please allow me to refuse this duel. After saying that, Lancelot apologized and gave Mihawk a knightly salute. After listening to his words, Beckman in the distance couldn't help but nodded, and said with some emotion, look, there are still kind-hearted guys in this world. Look at you again, just like others. It really brings out the good and evil of human beings, don't you feel ashamed? Orgrim was also nodding in praise. Don't say that Orgrim is a pirate or a villain, but for this there is still some admiration for such a truly kind person. I may not agree with your thoughts and practices, but I can respect your spirit. As a result, after hearing Beckman's ridicule, Orgrim became very unhappy and said, why don't you stop making fun of the eldest brother? You seem to have some truth, goodness, and beauty in you. Are you not just like me? Am I an asshole? Alas, you don't understand. I once had the idea of dedicating my life to the world, but it was just because I met you that you led me astray. There is nothing I can do about it. Young people will inevitably make the wrong mistake. Beckman shook his head very pretentiously and said. It was as if he really wanted to be a good person before. If Orgrim hadn't known that even without him, this bastard would eventually become a big pirate, and he would have been almost deceived by his superb acting skills. Damn it, uncle, according to what you say, I didn't have a choice to become a pirate, Orgrim cursed mercilessly. Here, the two Orgrim brothers were still lamenting Arthur Lancelot's noble sentiments and noble chivalry. On the other side, Mihawk heard after Lancelot's words, he frowned, thought for a moment, and asked in other words, you lack a reason to fight with me, right? That's right, there is absolutely no need for us to get involved with each other. I see that you are also the Lamb of God. You might as well sit down and discuss gods. Lancelot smiled and nodded. However, before he finished speaking, Mihawk pulled out the black knife knight carried on his back, and then slashed it out with Lancelot's horrified gaze. The powerful slash cut through the church in an instant, beheading some of the believers who were praying in the church. Blood spurted out, turning the church that originally symbolized holiness and peace into a hell. Maybe Mihawk didn't mean to provoke Orgrim and the others, so the slash dissipated when he was about to approach the corner of Orgrim's side. Orgrim and Beckman were also stunned, and the people in the church also shouted in terror and fled out. Damn it, this is a cruel person, Beckman murmured in great surprise. What the hell, I finally understand why a guy like Mihawk is defined by the world government as an evil pirate, Orgrim also smacked his lips and said. Orgrim had never seen Mihawk before, but based on his impression of Mihawk in his previous life, he felt that Mihawk was just a swordsman. He didn't know why he was defined as a pirate. In the end, what kind of king has he become? After all, Orgrim felt that Mihawk was not a pure evil, nor did he become a pirate because of life pressure. He also felt that the world government had some misunderstanding about him. As a result, today is an eye-opener. This guy is indeed not pure evil, but he is definitely a pure swordsman, the kind of guy who can turn into evil at any time for the sake of the sword in his hand. It is completely reasonable for the world government to give him the identity of a pirate. You can't fault him. Hanging the black knife yet in his hand to the ground, Mihawk's expression was still very cold. He didn't look like the butcher who just casually took the lives of many people. Instead, he looked like a noble son. His mood did not fluctuate at all. He looked at Lancelot and said, now, you have a reason to fight with me, Or maybe, isn't this enough to make you, the guardian knight, take action? Lancelot only recovered from Mihawk's cruelty at this time. His originally sunny and kind expression became very gloomy, with an angry look in his eyes, and asked Mihawk, "Why are you doing this? This way? How could you do this?" Mihawk seemed a little puzzled and said, "My original intention is obviously to fight you. You lack a reason to do it, so I will give you this reason. It is natural, right?" What this guy said makes so much sense. Orgrim teased with a smile on his lips. Although he is a swordsman, he is really born to be a pirate. Look at this bandit's logic, there is no flaw, Beckman also said with a smile. Gee, ha 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 ha, I like this kind of talent, I want him to be my partner. Orgrim laughed and said. At the same time, Lancelot took a deep breath and calmed down his emotions. He did not argue with Mihawk. Because he had already felt that Mihawk people like Hawk can't listen to these truths. Only the sword in his hand can reason with him. He slowly pulled out the knight's sword hanging on his waist. It was obvious that this was also a sword. Famous swords. This is normal. Arthur Lancelot may not be famous in the world, but he is still very famous in the field of religion. Among the young guardian knights of the church, he is the most talented. He is also the most devout believer. He is deeply loved and trusted by many church leaders. He is a proper second-generation god. The church has thousands of years of accumulation and is longer than the history of the world government. He provides his friends with a powerful weapon. It makes sense. This knight's sword is called justice. I will use my heart of honor and my heroic body to demand justice from you on behalf of these innocent victims, Lancelot looked at Mihawk and said in a deep voice. Mihawk didn't have any emotional changes, but his falcon-like eyes seemed to reveal a sense of confidence and excitement, and he still spoke very coldly. Please advise. As soon as Mihawk finished speaking, the knight's sword in Lancelot's hand sank. Without any fancy movements, he raised his hand and stabbed directly into Mihawk's chest. Orgrim and Beckman are not swordsmen. Experts, of course, can't understand the path here, but Mihawk is an expert in gymnastics. The moment Lancelot took action, he already understood that this guy is not a person who seeks fame and reputation. He is very strong. This simple stab, accurate, fast, and the angle is very tricky, the wrist does not even shake, it is obviously that the purity of the lead has been washed away through repeated tempering, no one who is not a master of swordsmanship can make this blow. In fact, Lancelot it is indeed a product of hard work. Although he is not very old, he has participated in several holy wars of the church. In addition, this guy belongs to the ascetic faction. In addition to serving gods, he also serves swords. His kung fu is very solid. The black knife in Hawk's hand, knight, was lifted up, and he blocked Lancelot's straight thrust with the blade very accurately. Then, for the first time, a smile appeared on the corner of Mihawk's mouth. With a flick of his wrist, the black knife moved away from Lancelot's knight's sword very dexterously, and struck it down with a cleave, as if it wanted to split Lancelot open. Sacrifice, Lancelot shouted in a low voice. He had no intention of blocking with his sword. The knight's sword in his hand stabbed directly at Mihawk's chest again. At the same time, his body turned slightly, as the guardian knight, he wears his own knight armor almost all the time, and as a second-generation god, he has already mastered the power of hacking. On the shoulder where Mihawk dropped his sword, a jet-black weapon-colored haki has already covered on it. Lancelot looked very humble, but when he moved his hands, he was very fierce, and he did not hesitate to use this method of exchanging injuries for injuries. Today's flowers will be added. Thank you all for your support.